Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we are live with Carl Zha, political commentator and podcaster. I've been watching his excellent work. He's got his own channel. All of his links are in the description box, so please support his work. Really pertinent conversation with Trump visiting China with the backdrop of the Iran war. And I saw Carl on a recent podcast. I'm going to paraphrase, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But he described the U.S. Administrators, these wannabe jock characters. He actually described them as petulant toddlers in need of a proverbial spanking.
They're toddlers with very dangerous weapons, though. They're like toddlers with guns. That's what makes them dangerous.
So, just to summarize what's happened this year, then, before we get into it with you, we saw Trump have the tariffs, and then China responded by saying, okay, no rare earths for the military-industrial complex. And now we're seeing the Trump administration try and put more constraints on China over Iran, oil, etc. I mean, Trump going into this meeting then, what do you think his attitude is going to be? Because it doesn't seem to be coming from a really strong position.
That's correct. I think the original aim for the Trump administration was that they're going to do the Venezuelan operation, and then they're going to kneecap Iran. Then Trump can go to Beijing and tell Xi Jinping, hey, we got your energy partners by the balls, and you now have to give us rare earth that we wanted. But now the Iran war is still dragging on. We're like, this is the third month, and there's no resolution in sight. It turns out United States cannot open the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, was open before they started the illegal war against Iran. And so Trump is going to China with incredibly weak hand, but he has to go, because if he does back down, if he delays the trip or cancels the trip, you will make him look weak. Then everybody will figure out, okay, that was his game. He's not going because he has no leverage. So just for the photo op opportunities, he needs to go. And Trump is master at photo ops and projecting an image of success. That's what he has been doing for the past decades. He is a reality TV show host, so he actually needs this opportunity to present an image of success. And he's gonna go meet with Xi Jinping. It doesn't matter what deals are work out or not. He's going to claim this was a great success, and he had great personal chemistry with Xi Jinping, and he is a great peacemaker. Everybody should give him a Nobel Peace Prize. That's exactly what's going to happen.
What is the true view of Trump by people in China?
Well, people actually find Trump very amusing. There's a great internet meme in China that says Trump is actually a secret agent by the Communist Party of China. His goal is to sabotage the American empire for the good of China, make China great again. I mean, it's funny, but everything it turns out, make you think, right? So far, whatever Trump has done is to accelerate the decline of American empire, and it makes China look good in comparison. Like now, Xi Jinping looks like a responsible world leader who is for peace and stability, while Trump is lobbing bombs at everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at pictures of some of the cities in China, and they look like they're out of science fiction movies. They're so futuristic. And you've got Trump spending 60 billion so far bombing, this poor country, instead of taking all that money and building America up and making America advance. Is this the business of China? It's construction and building things and collaborating around the world peacefully, versus America just being this huge bully and taking all their taxpayers' money and spending it on blowing things up so they can put it in the pockets of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, well, Julian Assange, pointed out a long time ago. He said this is when he was talking about Afghanistan war. He said, the goal is never to win the war in Afghanistan. The goal is to wash vast sum of money from tax bases of North America and Europe into the hands of a very small transnational security elite. That has always been the game. So it doesn't matter which war they fight. This is why United States, they keep on pivot. First Iraq, then Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, you name it. The goal is perpetual war for the profit of the military-industrial complex, whose stocks has been going up, by the way. If you look at Lockheed Martin, they're making a killing, and also big oil companies. Shell just reported first quarter earnings. Their profit, they just doubled their profit from the last quarter. Just by the mere fact that they start bombing Iran and close down the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, this is great for all the people that funds Trump, but it's not great for average people, because it's us who are gonna have to pay through the price increases. And as for the amount of money U.S. is spending on this Iran war, they're spending $2 billion a day. $2 billion with a B per day of the operation. I mean, by this point, it's far cheaper if they just pay reparation to Iran to the amount that Iran is asking for, than continue this war. But they will not do that, because how else is the military-industrial complex going to make their profit?
Yeah, look at Lockheed Martin. It's gone from almost nothing in the past 20-something years to 600. It's up a phenomenal amount of percent. And I'm sure that's a similar story for, is it Raytheon as well? Raytheon stock. Yep, Max. Oh my goodness. Raytheon up almost from nothing to recently as high as 200. Yeah, and that's the other thing, everybody's talking about a Great Depression and a stock market collapse because of oil prices, spiking. But the stock market, S&P, etc., they're just hitting new all-time highs right now. Do you think that? Go on.
That's what Trump is. That's what Trump is trumpeting. He said, "Look at the stock market. You hit all-time high. It validates everything I'm doing, right?" But everybody knew stock market, that's a rigged game. I lived through I lived through many bubbles in my life. I entered the American workforce back in 1999, at the tail end of the dot-com bubble. And right now, I feel like this is no different. What we have right now is an AI bubble. If you take away all the AI investment in the United States, all the money that went in to build data centers and purchase equipment for those data centers, the U.S. economic growth is basically zero. Like if you take away all the AI investment, the U.S. economy will be in recession right now. Well, guess what? They're gonna hit some serious headwind, because AI is very energy intensive. Ultimately, what's powering those AI will be electricity, will be energy. And United States, they decided, we're gonna put all our bets on hydrocarbon, because U.S. is a big oil and gas producer. So most of the electricity in U.S. is powered by hydrocarbon, and guess what? The hydrocarbon prices just skyrocketed, and they're going to hit. First of all, U.S. power grid hasn't grown over the last 20 years. As compared to China, if you look at the Chinese power production, it goes up like parabolic. U.S. power production is basically flat for the last 20 years, which makes sense, because the United States no longer make anything. It doesn't need that much electricity, but you do need a lot of electricity to power those data centers. So right now, what happened is those new data centers that's coming into stream, they're eating into the existing power generation. That means they're taking away from electricity that was generated for the civilian use. This is why electricity prices going sky high for everybody. Some AI companies, they try to build their own power source because they realize they cannot rely on US government to build infrastructure. So they build their own gas turbine power generators. But guess what? First of all, the gas per turbine power generator is powered by natural gas. Natural gas price is going up because Qatar, which produced 20% of the world's natural gas, just got shut off. And because natural gas is a globally traded commodity, even though United States itself is a huge natural gas producer and exporter, but those oil companies love to export those LNG, expensive American LNG to Europe, where they can make a huge tons of profit. So the natural gas price in the United States is still going up. And for those gas powered turbine to get set up, a lot of the equipment they have to import from China. They're still dependent on China. This is why Trump is going to China right now with plane loads of top American executives. All the top names, you name it, Goldman Sachs, Cargill, Apple, Elon Musk, NVIDIA. Everybody is going because this is they realize decoupling from China is actually not an option.
So is a side effect of the war with Iran that big businesses, especially oil and gas out of America, are making record profits, but others like farmers are getting wiped out?
Yeah, I mean, we have reports now. The farm bankruptcy in the United States is up 45%, and 75% of the farmers say they can no longer afford the increase in fertilizer and diesel, because again, people assume that U.S., because it's a big energy producer, you will profit. Well, yes and no, because the profit is not being evenly distributed. The profit goes to all the shareholders of the oil majors. If you have own stocks in Exxon Mobil, yeah, you're making out like a bandit. But if you're a farmer who try to purchase diesel to power your tractors, you're gonna have to pay a lot more. So that's a problem right now. Natural gas is used to make a lot of the chemical fertilizers like nitrogen, potassium, urea. These are all produced using natural gas. And guess what? The natural gas price is going through the roof because, again, the world, 20% of the world's supply just got cut off at the Persian Gulf.
That's ExxonMobil stock price. Just in a few years, gone from 50, it's up 200%. Just recently spiked above 150 on this Iran. Yeah, so big oil are making record profits thanks to this administration. Yeah. So does the stock market have to come back down to earth at some point then, when recession turns into depression?
Well, I remember what Alan Greenspan says. Irrational exuberance can last for a long time until it doesn't. I mean, like this. This right now, I really don't see the current stock market no different from the dot-com bubble. Nobody knows when you will crash, but this is not sustainable. Like all this money, all this investment that's going to the AI right now. The assumption is at some point you need to justify the return on investment. But guess what? None of those current AI boondoggle is generating any profit that's close enough that can justify the amount of investment that's going into it. This is why they keep on coming up with like new project, like the $500 billion Stargate project, and they don't even have money to fund it. They expected money to come from the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, so all the oil monarchies in the Persian Gulf. Well, guess what? They're not going to have money anymore because Kuwait hasn't exported any oil since the war started. Like same thing with Qatar and UAE and Saudi. They're still squeezing out some oil, but not enough because before the war, the Persian Gulf was shipping about 20 million barrels of oil per day. And right now, we only have that one pipeline that going across Saudi Arabia that's pumping out 4 million barrels a day. And that very shaky UAE pipeline that could pump out 1 million barrels a day. So that's 5 million barrels compared to like 20 million barrels per day before the war. This is a huge supply disruption, and this is why we are all gonna like this real shortage hasn't hit people yet. So this is why stock market is still as high as it is today, because the last oil tanker that left the Persian Gulf before the war started just arrived on the west coast of the United States right now. So the real shortage is going to start from now on. People are kind of buffeted by this time delay because it takes 50 days to travel from Persian Gulf to the west coast of the United States. But now that time delay is gone. The farmers already having shortages with fertilizers. Well, guess what? When farmers don't have fertilizers, we're going to have food shortages, because right now is the spring planting season. This is a small, limited time window when the farmer needs to plant their crop for the year. And if they don't get their hands on fertilizers, well, guess what? A few months down the road, toward the end of the year, we're going to have food shortages all across the globe. And that's going to be far more serious.
Yeah, so I was trading the financial markets in America during the dot-com bubble. And I'm just going to put a graph up here. Someone's comparing the rise of NVIDIA to Cisco, which was a beneficiary of the dot-com bubble. And usually you see like a parabolic rise, don't you, before the crash. And I've been watching the semiconductor stock market prices recently just go through the roof, like Intel, etc. So things have got really hot in the semiconductors here. So do you think we're like 1999 as opposed to 1998 right now?
Well, does it really matter? It's like we're just talking about a couple of years differences here. I mean, like the Cisco NVIDIA comparison is very, very good, because Cisco was said, okay, so everybody needs Cisco to power the dot-com revolution, right? Everybody needs routers, and this is what they say about AI. Everybody needs NVIDIA AI chips to power the AI revolution. Well, guess what? You still, at the end of the day, you still need to generate profit. You're putting all this money in right now, and they're promising the moon. They say, okay, AI, they're gonna be, by the time we achieve AGI, they're gonna replace tens of thousands. It's like having tens of thousands of PhDs working for you for free. Though they don't eat, they work 24/7. But yeah, okay. So when is that going to happen? I mean, they keep on saying AGI is just around the corner. It's like 6 months from now. Like they've been saying that like it's a year from now for like a couple of years now. I don't think that's the case. I think right now they're just saying that to pump up the stock price, and they're doing some really voodoo accounting right now. NVIDIA is investing in OpenAI. So it's all funny money, right? Like NVIDIA is funding this AI bubble, so people will need to buy more AI chips to put into those data centers, which are not generating any profit. So it's gonna come down sooner or later. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Okay. So with Iran then and the Strait, I mean, do you think that there will be a resolution? Because it seems that the points that each side is requesting are so far removed. Could there be a resolution, and could we see oil prices come back down?
Well, the oil price won't come down for a long time, because the production at the well in Persian Gulf, it's not a knob you can just turn it on and off. Like, to maintain production, they have to maintain constant pressure at the well. And what happens if you stop the production for too long? The pressure in the well builds, and you will start breaking your equipment, and then you're gonna have to your well is no longer usable. You have to drill a new well, which takes more time, more investment. Like an example is Kuwait. Kuwait, they still haven't they're still not at the same production level they were before Saddam invaded them in 1990. I mean, think about that. So the right now the disruption in Persian Gulf, even if they reach a peace deal today and they get back, all the engineers rush back trying to fix everything, make everything back, it will still take months, if not years, to restore the production to the pre-war level. So the kind of high oil price for is going to be baked in for a while. But for Iran's demand, Iran's demand is very clear because they have been attacked twice during negotiation with United States and Israel. So they need a security guarantee, and they want to make sure that does not happen again if agree to a. They don't want a ceasefire. They want a permanent peace settlement, and for them to feel safe, they would require U.S. pulling out its military out of the Persian Gulf region, which is anathema to the whole U.S. empire. That is the basis of the U.S. empire, is all those U.S. military bases in the region. And so that's a very hard pill for United States to swallow. Iran also wanted the U.S. to recognize Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz and lift all sanctions on Iran. So again, if U.S. agree to all those demands, this is basically the defeat of the U.S. empire. This is why, just for the sake of ego, it's very hard for United States to accept. And so what I'm afraid of is a Vietnam War scenario where back in the Vietnam War era, the Pentagon knew there's no chance for success, but nobody had the political courage and say, okay, let's just stop right now. Let's just stop our loss right now and pull out. So they let the war drag on and on until you have like 50,000 U.S. casualties, and millions of Vietnamese lives being ruined. So this war could go on a lot longer than anybody is expecting. But luckily for us, I think the ground invasion right now looks very unlikely because U.S. military capability got a reality check at the Persian Gulf. They tried a ground operation. That's what that rescue, quote unquote, rescue of lone pilot was. They send in 153 aircrafts and trying to rescue. I don't buy that story. I do not believe U.S. was sending 153 aircrafts to rescue one lone pilot. First of all, you don't need to. If you want to go in stealthily, get your guy out and come back. You don't need to do this, like send a freaking air armada in, alert everybody, and then have a huge battle. That's what happened. So I think that was actually their attempt to extract Iranian enriched uranium, which would allow Trump to have an off ramp, say, "Hey, we did our job. We got Iran's enriched uranium. They will not have nuclear weapons. Okay, mission success, mission accomplished." So now they have nothing. And for Trump, it's gonna like Trump. I'm pretty sure Trump is sick and tired of this closure of Strait of Hormuz. But for him, there's no way out because there's no face-saving way for America to exit at this point and still claim victory, because it's not up to them anymore. It's Iranian that get to set the terms, and this whole war may propel Iran from a mere regional power to a world superpower, because now they have the control on 20% of the world's oil and gas supply.
So, you touched on something about the uranium. We were told, previously that in the greatest military operation since Alexander the Great, that they'd wiped out all of Iran's capabilities. Then we're told Iran's just weeks away from nuclear bombing America. And we see the videos of Netanyahu going back 30 years, Iran's
2
Just
weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks.
Well, a few of the viewers, Carl, want to know, why do you think this war was really started?
Well, I'm still of the opinion this is really U.S. responding to Israeli pressure. I mean, Netanyahu really wanted this war. He wanted this war for personal reasons, but also for the greater Israel project. Because the greater Israel project, for people who don't know, is from River Nile to River Euphrates, and Iran stand as the biggest obstacle to this greater Israel project. Back in 1996, Daniel Pipe presented a plan called Clean Break to Netanyahu, which calls for remaking of Middle East, to make Israel safe. And later that plan got transformed into a 7-country in 7 years, and the spring commander of NATO, Wesley Clark, actually referred to this in early 2000 in an interview. He said, before the Iraq War, his people in Pentagon says, we saw the plan. It was the 7 countries, 7 years, and among the 7 countries, you have Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Iran. I forgot. There's a couple more countries, maybe Lebanon. But Iran was always the biggest target on that list, and it was the last country on that list that haven't, got went full attack mode yet up till this administration. And the reason they have not waged war on Iran until now is because Pentagon had waged war games after war games scenario, and it all comes out bad. They have to rig the game to allow the U.S. to win, because they knew Iran has this card that will be able to close the Strait of Hormuz, and U.S. will not be able to do much about it. So this is why 7 U.S. presidents have resisted Israeli pressure to go to war against Iran. This is essentially what admitted to by the former National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who admitted, Netanyahu came to us. He wanted to against Iran. Back then, we said no. So I think either Trump is very gullible. I'm just laying out all the scenario out there. You get to decide. I think either Trump is very gullible, or Trump has surrounded himself with some very bad advisors, or Israeli has some really incriminating evidence against him. We still don't know what's in the rest of the Epstein files. So, maybe it's a combination of all. Trump himself blamed his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. He said Kushner said it will be easy. So that's quite possible. And we know Kushner represents Israel's interests. Kushner is a guy who came up with the Abraham Accords plan, which is to have all the Muslim majority countries around the world to normalize relationship with Israel. They started with I think UAE, and then they were going to work their way to Saudi Arabia, and eventually including Indonesia. So basically, if the Abraham Accord would have happened, that would basically be the end of aspiration for Palestinian statehood or self-determination. And I think that's one of the reasons October 7th happened, because, after October 7th, there's no way in hell the Abraham Accord expansion would have gone ahead, because the Arab streets would not allow their rulers to normalize a relationship with Israel at that point. And so now, given all that, Israel, they saw a perfect chance. They saw this may be their last best chance to get what they want, which is get United States to go after Iran directly. Because Israel by itself cannot take on Iran. We already know that from the 12 Days War, when they tried and they failed. And so they need United States to be directly involved in a war against Iran. And Trump amazingly give them that, and so we're in this. I don't buy all these like theories coming out of American neocon think tanks like the Hudson Institute. Hudson Institute says this is the 5D chess by Trump is to choke off China's energy supply, but China is actually the best prepared for the current scenario. They have been stockpiling oil for the last 4 years while the oil was at historically low prices. And so now they're sitting on the world's largest strategic oil reserve at 1.5 billion barrels of oil, larger than the strategic oil reserve of US, Japan, and Europe combined. And the Chinese oil inventory hasn't gone down since the war started because oil is still coming in from Iran and Russia and other places. So right now, it's everybody else that's hurting, particularly it's the so-called U.S. ally countries like South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, even India, because India before they were purchasing Russian oil and gas and resell them to Europe at a premium price, but US told them to stop that, and they did, and now they had to come back to Washington to beg for a waiver, so they continue to purchase Russian oil and gas. So this worked very well for Russia, because Russia suddenly their state revenue just doubled with the oil prices, and overnight, and now they are sitting very pretty with a lot of oil and gas they can sell to the world market at much higher prices. And so if this is some kind of 5-dimensional chess, I mean, I'm sorry, man, I don't see it. I think this is just a backward justification for this thoughtless, planless, like they did not plan this. Trump was expecting an easy victory. This is why he didn't even bother to fill back the U.S. strategic oil reserve before he started the war, because U.S. used to have a sizable strategic oil reserve, and they have drawn down their inventory since Biden years because they wanted to win the election. They want to appease the electorate, keep the price low. So they have been drawing down on their strategic oil reserve, and they did not bother to fill it back up before they started this war. This is why the farmers are hurting. This is why the people can't afford their diesel, can't afford fertilizers. So Trump administration, they're just throwing poops on the wall to see what sticks at this point, to justify their action. But that's just typical Trump. We better educated people should not be taken in by that. I mean, by these flimsy excuses by the Trump administration.
So, Carl, how much oil from Iran is China presently buying? And is that an issue for America because it's enabling Iran to buy more military materials? And does a lot of that military material, drones, etc., come from China as well?
Yeah. Well, first of all, China, what U.S. is accusing China of providing, those are so-called dual-use items. They're not military items per se. These are the parts that could be used in the drone production. These are chemical precursors that could be used in production of missiles. But these, for Chinese perspective, these are just normal trade relationship with Iran, and U.S. should have no say about that. This is China and Iran has maintained a friendly relationship for a very long time, and they like to see that continue. And China also do not want Iran to fall, the same way that China do not want Russia to fall, because they know if Russia and Iran fell, guess what? They will be the next target. They don't want that. So why would they help United States to choke off Iran and Russia? That doesn't make sense. This is why China has been purchasing 90% of Iranian oil export after United States tried to choke off Iran with sanctions. And we know the figures from 2024 and 2025. I said we know because if we look at the oil imports for the pie chart for China's oil import, the top 3 origin countries is Russia, number 1, Saudi Arabia, number 2, and Malaysia at number 3. You're thinking Malaysia? Well, Malaysia is an oil producing country, but they don't produce oil at that scale. So what happened was all these Iranian oil and Venezuelan oil, they will travel on the dark fleet tankers to South China Sea, where the oil will get offloaded to a new tanker, and they will get relabeled as Malaysian oil to export to China to avoid the U.S. sanction. And we know the figures for Chinese import of Malaysian oil. So for 2024 is about 13%. 13% of China's oil import was from Malaysia, and 2025 that figure was reduced somewhat. It's at 11%. Was from quote unquote Malaysia, and so those are rebranded Iranian and Venezuelan oil. Now, right now, it's a little bit more tricky to see how much that amount of oil was being reduced, because the U.S. Navy are playing a cat and mouse game with Iranian oil tankers at this point. Because what happened is, Trump doing the blockade on blockade. So Iranian oil tankers right now, when they sail out of the Strait of Hormuz, they will hug the coastline. They will sail from the Iranian territorial water into Pakistani territorial water, and then they go into the Indian territorial water. So United States at this point do not wish to expand the war, so they don't want to violate the territorial water of India and Pakistan. So they have to wait until those tankers come out of the Indian territorial water and go into the open water. So the lot of the action of interdiction is around Sri Lanka. So that's a point where those oil tankers have to leave Indian territorial water. They either make a dash for the Sri Lankan territorial water, but even if they make that successful dash, there's still a huge stretch of open water between Sri Lanka and the Strait of Malacca, and that is the area where U.S. Navy is doing its interdiction. So I actually thought about this. I'm like, it would be far more efficient for U.S. Navy if they actually just place a blockade at the Strait of Malacca itself. Because all these Iranian tankers, eventually they will traverse through the Strait of Malacca, go to the other side, go into South China Sea, where their oil will be swapped. So I think one reason U.S. Navy chose not to do that, one is because they don't want to spook the stock market, because for Trump, that's all important. Do not spook the stock market. Because if United States do place a blockade on Strait of Malacca, that is going to cause a huge widespread financial panic, because Strait of Malacca is not just a lifeline for China, but it's a lifeline for all the country, all the East Asian country, all the Southeast Asian countries. And so just by mere presence of U.S. Trying to do a blockade over there is gonna spook is going to cause the stock market crash. So that's one reason that they try not to do that. Another reason that they might not to do that is, the closer you're getting to South China Sea, the easier the U.S. Navy will be challenged by China, because the Chinese militaries they're structured to be. They're not structured like the U.S. military, which is an imperial expeditionary force that can be deployed all over the globe. This is why U.S. have bases all over the world, because their navy need constant refuel, so they need these bases to logistic bases. China does not have that. Only overseas Chinese naval bases in Djibouti, right? Very, very, very far and very isolated. But what Chinese military is designed to do is to fight a war around its immediate neighborhood, including South China Sea. So U.S. Navy, if they try to do a blockade at the Strait of Malacca, then they might be challenged by the Chinese Navy, which Chinese Navy has been built up to to do exactly that, to break through a blockade at Strait of Malacca, because U.S. Navy has for decades has said, we're going to choke off Strait of Malacca because that's a choking point for the Chinese energy supply. So this is why they try to put the action away from the Strait of Malacca, and then they're doing this silly cat and mouse game in the Indian Ocean instead. So as for how many tankers are getting through versus how many getting interdicted, it's really hard to tell at this point because we do have the fog of war. But there is definitely a reduced flow coming from Iran to China for sure.
Yeah, so we had Stanislav on recently talking about America's nuclear capabilities versus Russia's. What about Chinese nuclear capability for nuclear weapons?
Okay, so for decades, Russia had the largest nuclear arsenal. Their new arsenal far larger than the US one. And China has maintained a relatively small size nuclear arsenal. Like at we don't really know the exact number because China really officially released a number. All we have is estimate from the CIA. Before was for decades, the CIA estimate China has about around 300 to 400 nuclear warheads. And now they're saying that China is expanding its nuclear arsenal, and China could have up to 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. And I think this is in response to the increasing belligerence of the United States when China realized, well, okay, maybe 300 is not enough. we need more coverage. We need to make sure we can cover more U.S. cities. So I think that's probably where they're going. They're probably going to go to somewhere around 1,000 to 1,500 nuclear warheads, just enough to pose a nuclear deterrent. Because official Chinese nuclear policy is no first strike. So that means they will need to have enough nukes to survive a preemptive strike by power like United States and have second strike capability. So that's what they have been developing lately. That this is why they're developing mobile launchers and solid fuel ICBMs. And now they have more delivery vehicles. China now have hypersonic missiles. Hypersonic glider that can not only travel hypersonic speed, but they can alter direction, so they can dodge all the anti-missile capability of the United States. And on top of that, U.S. anti-missile capabilities have been found wanting in both in the 12 Days War and in the current Iran war, because they only had 11 total of that anti-ballistic launchers all over the world, and Iran managed to took out 4. And Iran was doing this very smart thing. They just went straight for the radar, because without radar, those THAAD launchers are blind. They're useless. And by taking out the radar, they disable 4 THAAD. Those THAAD launchers are expensive, by the way. Like each launcher costs like $1 billion, and like each missile interceptors cost somewhere between $5 to $10 million. This is why they're running out. They during the 12 Days War, Wall Street Journal already reported they depleted about 25% of their missile interceptors. Well, now we're like what? The third month into the Iran war, they're running very low on their missile interceptors at this point. This is another reason U.S. can't do much about Iran, because Iran still have tens of thousands missiles that they could launch, and this is the thing about anti-ballistic missile defense is you're using a bullet to shoot down a bullet. So your bullet is actually a lot more expensive because it has to be more technologically sophisticated, and it's not an economic attrition game you can win if the other side have tens of thousands of missiles. They can just overwhelm your your missile defense with enough missile barrage. And China has magnitude more missiles and more advanced missiles than Iran. This is why a lot of analysts' conclusion after this war is, forget about war with China. U.S. just don't have the capability for that right now, because if U.S. cannot handle Iran, forget about China. The war over Pacific is a fantasy.
So we've got a few viewer questions come in. First one is, what is China's appetite to work with Trump and the US? What's the sentiment?
That's a very good question. China has always said that the door is open for cooperation. Now, Xi Jinping said a couple of years ago. He said this was back in Biden administration. I think he said the world is large enough for both U.S. and China to exist. But this is not something the Washington elite believe in, because the Washington elite uniformly believe in the zero sum competition. They believe, for U.S. to win, the other has to lose. So they don't buy the win-win approach. They believe in the Tanya Harden type of competition where they want to kneecap their opponents. And but this is but they're now coming to confront with physical reality, which is their real physical resource restraint on the U.S. empire, as we saw during the Iran war. So they also have to come to realize that they cannot push around China, especially with Trump's tariff war. China just said no. If you're gonna do tariff on us, we're gonna do tariff on you. Let's see who hurt more. And ultimately, I think China is going to show United States who really is the most powerful economy in the world. And China is not. China usually try not to throw its military power around, but China will throw its economic power around, because they, Sun Tzu said in the art of war, choose your battle, choose your timing, choose your fight from your strength. Chinese strength is China is now the world's factory. It is a manufacturing superpower. So that's what they will leverage in their negotiation with the United States. I think U.S. will still try. I think one of the things U.S. will try to do is to try to get China to lose export control on rare earth, but they don't. What do they have to trade for it? It's a give and take, right? Like, if you want rare earth, what do you have to trade for it? Are you going to trade Taiwan? I mean, I don't even think Taiwan is there to give in the first place. But so what are they going to agree? So I don't expect there will be some big breakthrough deals coming out of this current Trump visit. There will be a lot of photo ops, and Trump will again claim a great diplomatic success. But I think they will go for some more let's say easy wins. They might announce some cooperation on, say, like AI. There are talks currently talks about placing limit on the AI development so it doesn't endanger humanity, right? So they'll probably agree to some kind of protocol on AI development in that regards. That's something more doable and more acceptable to both sides right now than anything more tangible, because I just don't see what US have at this point, because they unless they left the chip sanction on China. But again, I don't see that happening, because the whole Silicon Valley tech bro elite that had captured the White House, they have no interest to see Chinese AI become a serious competition to the American AI. So they will continue their Tanya Harden approach to the Chinese AI industry by restricting AI chips to China. So I don't think that's gonna change. So yeah, I realistically, I think there will be some nice pictures, some videos. Trump will claim victory again, but I don't think much of substance will come up.
So next question is from Agent Orange. He wants to know about the role of Venezuelan oil in all of this.
Yeah, this is another good question, because Venezuela always been, there's always a lot of claim about Venezuela being the world's largest, has the world's largest oil reserve. But what people need to understand, there's crude oil and there's crude oil. There are different grade of crude oil. What Venezuela has in abundance is called very heavy crude, and those type of crude oil is used usually for paving the road, like asphalt, because their oil is so thick, it's almost solid. They actually need to import like Iranian crude to mix in to allow them to flow through, to mix in with the Venezuelan crude to allow them to flow through the pipeline. That's how thick the Venezuelan oil is. Whereas the oil that's produced in Persian Gulf region, they're light sweet oil. They require minimum processing, and they also much easier to dig out, and so that's why they're highly valued. Where this issue actually came up when Trump had the American oil majors executives come together to talk about possible investment in Venezuelan oil industry, and the big American big oil says, we don't know. It's going to take too much money. It's going to require too much investment to get anything out of the Venezuelan oil sector at this point, because Venezuelan oil sector, they need a lot of investment to upgrade their infrastructure. Also, you take like the Venezuelan heavy crude. Also, very similarly, the Canadian tar sand is actually need a lot of energy to get energy out. So this is why the oil price has to remain very high to even for that to be justifiable. I think for Canadian tar sand, the oil price need to be about $75 per barrel for them to be profitable. Well, right now it is. Right now, because of war, it is. But if the oil price ever falls back down below like $80, like that, their business model will be kaput. So the Venezuelan oil actually will not, like at the current stage, will not make a big impact, because they're going to take years of investment to increase the oil production from Venezuela. And this is why the big oil major said we rather invest in oil, in the oil sand in Canada, because Canada is much more politically stable. We know in 10 years, if we're gonna put an investment that we don't see any return on our investment for another 10 years, we rather have more trust putting in Canada than in Venezuela. So that's a deal with it.
So Marie's asking, what do you think the real reason for invading Venezuela was?
Marco Rubio has presidential aspirations. All these Latin American effort currently being pushed by Trump administration, whether Venezuela, and they also said they're going to go after Cuba. This is what Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio is under Marco Rubio's portfolio. He is building up his resume for a presidential run in 2028, and this is more American internal domestic. Like I said, all politics is domestic politics. This has to do with more American internal politics. Also, it looks good for Trump administration. Like Trump can claim victory again. For him, it's an easy win. This is why I think some of Trump's advisors convinced that the Iran operation will be another easy win, like Venezuela. They can just, decapitate the senior leadership, and then Iranian government will fall in line, and then Trump will ask for Nobel Prize again. But it just didn't pan out the way they thought it would.
All right, next question is about India. So from Lillian, what will India's role be in BRICS since he has hitched his wagon to Israel?
Oh, India, yeah. Right now, Iran is probably the better eye in the BRICS and India, because India, they try to, but okay, so what they try to do, they try to get maximum advantage from both the BRICS and the United States. But in more recent years, they somehow thought they will get more by aligning closer with Israel and United States. I mean, one of the reasons for Israel's closer alignment with India's closer alignment with Israel is couplefold. One is there is a huge Islamophobia in India, especially among Modi's Hindu voters, who, from that perspective, they want him to align with Israel. But for the Indian elite, they more saw aligning with Israel as a way to align closer with the United States, because I think they correctly understand Israel do have a lot of influence in Washington. So they thought by getting cozy with Israel, that will allow them to have better terms with Washington. Well, they did for a while, but the problem is the close relationship with United States come at a price. The price that U.S. demanded was for them to cut their ties with Russia, for example, to give up purchasing Russian oil and gas. Well, that did not work, after the Iran war broke out, and so now they're back to buy Russian oil and gas, but they had to ask a waiver from the U.S. Treasury Department, which is really shameful, because India is a regional power. India is inheritor of ancient civilization. Why does it need permission from United States to buy Russian oil? It should be none of U.S. business. So the whole Modi diplomacy has been a disaster for India, because for years India pursued what's called the non-alignment policy. That means they don't take a side. So they had a good relationship with Iran. They had good relationship with Russia, and they had good relationship with United States. But more recently, they try to tilt that balance more toward U.S. and Israel, and it looks really bad when Modi just visited Israel days before U.S. and Israel started the war against Iran. And I don't even understand the Modi speech in Israel Parliament. He said something like, Israel is a fatherland and India is a motherland. I don't even know what that means, but it looks bad. It's bad optics, man. It's bad optics. So I think India will keep on limping along. Like, you will continue to remain in the BRICS for the fact India's size, because India is the world's largest most populous nation right now. It has more than 1.4 billion people, even more than China, and it still has it presents a huge potential market. So that way, everybody will still want to include India, at least on their side. Like, they don't want to be actively antagonize India to put India in the other camps. But I think India's role will be limited, because it's not reliable. It's not a reliable partner. And this is another reason Trump recently has given more credit toward Pakistan. India really didn't like that. First, when the Indian-Pakistan conflict broke out, Pakistan was first to credit Trump for bringing the ceasefire, but India denied it, and that hurts Trump's ego, right? Pakistan know how to play up to Trump's ego. When India said no, that Trump has nothing to do with it, so Trump didn't like that. Trump is the type of person who would carry a grudge, and more recently, Pakistan for its role to try to host a peace talk between U.S. and Iran. So again, India is just it didn't do itself any favors in its more in its diplomatic maneuvers. I think India will keep on limping along. You will keep on getting included in all these multilateral organizations, but I think its role will be limited, because people will recognize, one, India is not reliable. Two, as Trump realized, during the packet, I think the Trump is very easy to read. He despises weakness and he respects strength. When Pakistan looked like it had upper hand in air battle versus India, Trump's like, oh, okay, Pakistan is someone I can work with, and and he just had less respect for India afterwards. So yeah, so India will always be there, just for the fact it's a huge country, has a lot of population. People don't want India to be actively on the other side of the camp. But I think India's role will be limited internationally.
Carl, we're at the hour. Thank you for your brilliant insights. And if you want to subscribe to Carl's channel, here's the link in the live chat. If you're watching on replay, it's in the description box. What can people look forward to on your channel in the coming days?
Well, I think I will be talking a lot about Trump's visit to China because that just seems what everybody's talking about right now. Like, this is still early. Like, we probably won't really know what's being worked out, until end of this week. But we can always we can always speculate, because that's fun. It's fun to make educated guesses. Yeah.
Well, huge thank you for coming on, my friend. I'm going to let you go and close the show, and you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, viewers, please support Carl. All these links are in the description box. And thank you for your questions. We've got more shows coming. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, tonight, the Hidden Money Trail, banks that helped Epstein. Tomorrow, US versus Iran, Edge of Nuclear War with Glenn Deason. And then Epstein in the evening. And then Saturday night, Kevin Annett, Story Part 2, followed by Red Part 4 on the Charlie Kirk conspiracy. So loads more shows coming your way, folks, in the coming days.